Hi, this is Donna. When you arrive at chapter 3, you will understand why the powers that be are afraid of this book. I have not read a royal biography like this one. It's not mean, it's just real. In America, we're used to straight talk, but in England, the people who run the government do not know how to share truth and keep respect. In America, we honor truth and respect the people who speak it. Harry is a truth teller. He has the world's respect. Now, in chapter 3, Omid talks about Pengate. Well, we all saw it. He talks about the leaky fountain pen. He talks about how the king was called grumpy. He says that some composure is required and expected, especially so when your predecessor was celebrated as the living embodiment of grace under pressure. Now, this statement is true. We all felt that way, and I don't think Charles wants to be reminded of this. Now, a mere 48 hours later, he had another Pengate. Remember when he was signing the historic proclamation of his new position as the king? And I didn't know that the pen and ink pot was given to him by his sons, Harry and William. Okay? So naturally, he says in the book, with a little concern for optics, he did this with the world watching and waiting to see how the new king was in action. Remember, everybody was saying, oh, wow. Now, also, he talked about COP27 and how as king, he could not attend as he did as Prince Charles, but the government compromised and allowed him to have a pre-conference reception for a lot of the attendees at Buckingham Palace, okay? He also talks about something I didn't know, that there was a fight between the palace and the government because Charles wanted a slimmed down coronation and the government wanted a full coronation. And he says that Sunak and Whitehall, the government, envisioned a full fat celebration weekend, the full Monty of carriages, a big concert and national celebration. The firm saw the coronation as a chance to show the importance of it through prudence and sensitivity, but the government wanted to distract and redirect by way of the extravagance. Okay, they don't want him saying that. Okay, so the government won and Charles lost, which is sad because I think the coronation was a failure. It should have been slimmed down. He also talked about how Harry and Meghan's documentary and Spare upset the king. This is where where he says he went from not wanting anyone to talk about his son openly criticizing him to calling him that fool. Now, that was after Netflix came out because he was overshadowed. He had this big event planned and he did not get any coverage because of Netflix. Okay, he doesn't like to be overshadowed. Alrighty. Now, also, he talks about having Andrew and the bad optics of Andrew being at Easter and how Charles doesn't seem to want to do anything to hurt Andrew, but he took away Frogmore Cottage. Okay. He also talks about how he wanted to give the cottage Frogmore to Andrew, but Harry and Meghan lost it. Alrighty. He also talks about how his judgment came into question once again because he met with the president of the European Commission. So he's saying that the people in government are questioning Charles's judgment and that nobody can forget the Queen. Now, he talks about the Monday money. And this was on Monday, Thursday, and he talks about how eggs was hurled in protest at Charles. He says, but while greeting locals after unveiling a statue of his late mother, Charles experienced something the late Queen never did: eggs hurled in protest. Now, he says, that Charles was going to do what he wanted to do. He said, as the Queen told Harry a few years earlier, your father always does what he wants to do. Charles has finally got his chance, and only he can squander it. Okay, I get the impression that Omid misses the Queen, and many people do. And I'm sure that Charles doesn't want to be reminded that he has a great deal to follow. Omid, throughout chapter 3, he compares the Queen to Charles. And believe me, in chapter 3, rightly so, because he's not comparing anything that is untrue. It's all historical. We all watched it happening. But I am sure that this is not the book Charles wants to come out. He does not want people to be reminded that he has had some failures. And hopefully, as Omid says, Charles won't squander his opportunity. Hopefully, he'll be a man and take care of his family.